Boker Tov, we're continuing the Misnayot, Masechet Pesachim, Perek Daled, Mishna Gimel. So again, we're continuing to talk about things that if it's done in one city and not done in another city, but you go to that opposite city, you have to take on the stringencies. So Mishnah gives another example. So as follows. Here's a little bit of an intro to it. So selling a animal, let's say like an ox, a behema gasa. Selling an animal, Chachamim made a gezerah not to sell an animal to a goy, not to sell a behema gasa to a goy, because maybe, we're going to see, what do you mean, I can't sell an animal to a goy? How does that work now? We'll figure that, we'll talk about that in a moment. But the gezerah is you're not allowed to sell a behema gasa to a goy, a cow, even a donkey, or a horse. We'll talk about a horse in a moment, because it might come to the time of sale, and they're going to say, you know what, let me borrow it first, let me rent it first, and then what's going to happen is that the goy is going to use your animal on Shabbat. And an animal is an extension of you, and we're commanded in the Torah on Shvitat Behemto, that just like I can't break Shabbat, my children can't break Shabbat, my animals also cannot break Shabbat. And therefore, you can't sell an animal behema gasa. It's an animal, these animals work in the field. Chamor and an ox, they work in the field, they plow, etc. You can't sell it because maybe you might come to lend it, and the guy's going to use it on Shabbat. So with that introduction, what about behema daka? Animals that are small animals, sheep, goats, they don't do work. So there's a discussion, because if I start selling those animals, I might come to sell the other animals. Or no, there's not an issue. So makom shenahagu limkor behema daka lagoyim mochrin. In a place where the custom was to sell the smaller animals to goyim, yalla, sell. Makom shenahagu shelo limkor and mochrin. But in a place where the custom was not to sell, you do not sell. And if you go from one place to the other, that you got to do the stringencies of both. But everyone agrees you cannot sell a big animal, a behema gasa. Now what about agalim usiachim? What about, a big animal is an ox, let's say. What about a calf, a baby ox? Or a baby chamor, siachim. So they can't do work now, but because they could do work soon, they're going to grow up, still you can't sell those. Shelemim ushvurim. You can't sell them if they're complete, or even if they have a broken leg. So you can't work. He's a broken leg. Still, you can't sell it because he's going to get fixed. It's going to get better. That's the Tanakama, and that's how we rule. And we'll talk about, again, so how do you sell nowadays? We'll talk about that. Rabbi Yehuda, matir b'shvura. Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah says, you're allowed to sell an animal with a broken leg. You could sell, he's not working. Ben betera, matir besus. To the goy, we're talking to the goy, selling to the goy. This whole thing about selling to the goy. To the Jew, it's all fine. Ben betera, matir besus. Ben betera says you're allowed to sell a horse, because a horse is more for riding and not necessarily for avodah in the field. But the halacha is not like Ben betera, the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda, the halacha is like the Tanakama, that any behema gasa you cannot sell. So what do you do? Is this true? You cannot sell to a goy? How do we do it? So the way to sell to a goy a behema gasa is through, it's called a sir sur, through a middleman. So what happens is the owner's not there. The middleman, he does the sale. So what happens is that imagine the middleman now meets with the goy. Okay, I'm here to sell you. You want to buy the ox? Here to sell. If the goy says, well, you know what? Let me borrow it first. Let me rent it first. The middleman doesn't have the power it's not his to allow to rent it out or to lend it out. So I have to call my owner. I can't do that. Once he calls the owner, that's already a distance. The owner's going to say, no, we can't do that in our halacha. But the middleman to just sell, so because the owner's not going to be there, then you'll be able to sell, and we won't come to an issue of lending and using an animal on Shabbat. Baruch Adonai Olam, Amen ve'Amen. Rabbi Chananya ben Akasha Maratzah Kadosh Baruch Hu lezakot et Yisrael לפיכך יתבע עליהם כלום שנאמר על חפץ ומצדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר.